let's look at the bottom half of the Premier League standings, and we're going to talk about Nottingham Forest because they are languishing there in 17th place, just hovering above the relegation zone. They actually have played more games than they have points after finishing last season in 7th place. They were going so well, but then we do know how things work at Nottingham Forest, don't we? And we're going to try and make sense of it. Now we're going to bring back in Beth. Beth, why exactly did Forest even get rid of Nuno, even though we knew that the relationship with the owner and Nuno was getting very toxic at the end? But he did almost get them into the Champions League last season, and that shows remarkable progress for them.
Most bizarre managerial decisions that as we've seen in the Premier League in recent years. And as you say, the main factor behind that decision, I think, came from the tension between Nuno and the owner Marinakis. I think, it's been clear for quite a while that things weren't good between them, and I think, when Nuno came out and publicly admitted that was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back, really. I think it's a shame for Forest fans because it was an excellent season for them last season. There was such a tough team to beat. It was such a tough place to go. It was such an exciting campaign for them. It looked for the majority of the season that they were going to get in the Champions League. Now, obviously, they fell just short in the end, but still, they're back in Europe. They're in the Europa League. It should be a really, really exciting time for them. And I think, at the moment, they've got, fans in the stands singing that they want Postecoglou sacked, and that is, when you look at where they were sort of 6 months ago, it was sort of inconceivable to think that they would be in this kind of position. So yeah, it's a really, really baffling decision. Nuno obviously is now at West Ham, and there's still obviously a lot of work to do there, but you wouldn't be surprised if judging by what he's done previously at Wolves in particular and at Forest, he's able to turn them into a really solid team. And Forest at the moment, obviously not doing particularly well under Postecoglou. It's very difficult to see where they go forward from here, because it certainly seems like the fans aren't very happy with the decision to let Nuno go.
I sent one of my mates in Nottingham a text yesterday, actually, as he said, "Big Ange," and I did the old shoulder shrug emoji. And I was looking for a bit of a response from him, see because he's a big season ticket holder, and he just sent me the shrug shoulders emoji back. So I don't know what that means, whether, should we not be asking questions, although some of the fans have been singing about him being sacked, or are they saying it's too early, or what? But, we talked about this. When you bring managers into a football club, you have to bring somebody in that has, unless you're trying to change everything, you have to bring somebody in who has a way of working with a certain group of players. And we all sat here, Stevie and myself, Shaq, Ali, whoever it was, and said, Frank, we said, we have the most harem-scarum manager that the Premier League has seen for many a year. And boy, it was exciting at Spurs for 6 months. It was super exciting. And then they fell off the edge of a cliff with no parachute. He's gone into this side that did brilliantly on organisation. Pacey wide players, and Chris Wood up front having the time of his life. 2 big centre-halves that would head a brick away. And you bring a manager in that wants to go completely a different way. Well, that's fine, but then you have to give him time. And you show me any club that has Greek ownership, because if you look at the teams in the Greek league, Panathinaikos, AEK, all these teams, they hire and fire like that. These owners, they just don't suffer. And I just don't see how this is a marriage that's going to work. And I think it's clear early on, he's trying to change the team, and they're not capable of doing that. How they got results, Stevie, was organisation and structure. Yeah. Diggers in midfield, Pacey in the wide, and a back four that wanted to defend. A keeper that was actually playing well in cells. I just don't see how they're going to get results with this manager.
They went from a coach that didn't leave any holes, any gaps,
to all the holes now,
to a coach who wasn't worried about leaving gaps. Door. And so,
it's crazy.
I mean, if you want to confuse your players, you've got a group of players who have spent the last 18 months, every day in training, every time they step on the field, this is what we do, this is what we do, this is what we do, this is where you need to be. Get the balls away, we're doing shape, We're doing defensive work. You need to be covering him. To a coach who's the complete opposite. Forget all that. Let's get the balls out and enjoy ourselves. It was never going to work in a million years. And if you think you can make it work overnight, then again, the proof's in the pudding. Just have a look at Forest players. They look during the game as if they're unsure of what to do. And that's down to the manager. That's down to the owner, who has brought in a manager who's made them unsure. And so you're going to lose games.
And it's not just
guess what? They're losing games.
And it's not just going to affect the team and the club. It's going to affect Postecoglou, because if this continues, he'll get sacked. He'll fire him if this continues. And his stock is just plummeted. And I think it's sometimes managers tend to rush into the wrong jobs. They come out a big job, and they take the first thing that comes along in a big league. I'm sure maybe there was one or two others, but the first thing in the big league again. And it's not always the right thing to do. I remember back to David Moyes when he left Manchester United, right? And, he wasn't given much of a crack at the whip, but they decided to sack him. In no particular order, he jumped into Real Sociedad, he jumped into Sunderland. These were just poison chalices, particularly Sunderland. And your stock just plummets from there. Now, he resurrected that, obviously, did a fantastic job at West Ham and now at Everton. But at one point you thought, where's David Moyes going to go from Sociedad to Sunderland and sack there? And when you make these decisions, and Forest are a good club, but it's the wrong fit at the wrong time. If he walked into a Forest team that was set up to play that way, I could understand it.
You have to think Ange's ego got involved.
Yeah.
Because if you play, and he told us often enough and long enough, this is how I play the game and I'm not changing.
Yeah.
His ego must have taken over when he was offered this job. I can do this. I'm going to show them that I can do this. Well, right now he's not.
Well, I suppose it's hard to blame him there when, he came under so much criticism at Spurs. He said he was brought in to win a trophy and he ended up winning a trophy. So, Frank, how long? I know what you're thinking. Frank, how long do you think Ange is going to last?
Not long. If he carries on like that, I don't give him a bright future. That's for sure. But I want to gossip. I want to know what exactly happened between the owner and Nuno, because it doesn't make any sense to me. What Nuno did to Wolves and then last year with Nottingham. Even if you can stand him, you cannot stand the guy, you keep the guy, because what he did is exceptional. And as Stevie alluded, you don't go to the opposite. So I don't know why you want to go to the opposite. So, yeah, Ange, I think, rushed into another job, and I think it's a real mistake. You need to digest and maybe come back with a freshness, and then you can go back to what you were the best at. But it was the wrong club at the wrong time with the wrong tactic. So for sure, it cannot work.
I think he questioned Marinakis in a sense. Going back to last year for the incident where Marinakis came onto the field and was remonstrating publicly in the manager's face, that was it probably wasn't the start of it, but that was publicly, certainly in front of the cameras, the start of it. And then he questioned, or he talked about Marinakis' role, or lack of, therefore, in recent transfer discussions. And he was almost trying to say that Marinakis didn't care, which I'm sure he does. So once you question somebody who is in their own world so powerful and just can make decisions on a whim, then you're screwed. But I got a sense that by that time, Nuno Espirito Santo was saying these things because he wanted out. That he knew knew the writing was on the wall. Because if he didn't really want out, he wouldn't have said.
Put your head down.
But I think he knew that by saying those things, there would be a parting of the ways. And it was unlikely, bearing in mind they were looking to sell some of the players. They sold Elanga to Newcastle. It was very unlikely that he was going to be able to manoeuvre Forest into the position he did the year before. Not impossible, but very unlikely. And so I think he looked at it and thought, do you know what? We made hay last year while the sun was shining. The owner is a loose cannon. All the stuff going on behind the scenes. I'm going to drop a little grenade here and there and we'll go our separate ways, and nobody can question my stock because we're coming off last year. So in that sense, from him, I think it was probably a smart decision from Forest. Where they've gone, not so much.
Well, see, I was going to go to Beth to find out what the gossip was between Nuno and, of course, the owner at Nottingham Forest. But who needed to when we have Craig Burley, our Nottingham insider?
I didn't talk. None of my mates know what goes on. They're too busy down the pub.
Oh, I love that.
I was only just looking at what I'd seen and what I'd heard.
But
you have your sources in Nottingham.
You know,
Craig's a big deal in Nottingham.
Sorry, Alexis, but one thing that I want to talk, because we are talking about the pub, and we had a chairman, Craig and I, you know, we never saw in the dressing room was skin beats. Never. He was always in the presidential, you know, suite, having a drink, enjoying his time, you know, working with the ball, but never bothering a coach. I've seen that in France a lot with chairmen thinking that they are their words, like Bernard Tapie at the time in Marseille. But it cannot work. Those people don't know football. They don't know football. They have nothing to do in the dressing room. It's crazy that we see more and more those coaches, those chairmen, owners, willing to be part of the tactic. No, you know nothing. Just go to the presidential suite, shake hands, you know, have a drink, and let the people, the professionals, doing the work.